You spend time with your family?
Sure I do.
Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
Hey everybody, Stacks here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I know it's been a minute, but let's get into Marauders number 10. Of course, this is written by Gerry Duggan. Stefano Caselli is your artist, and Edgar Delgado is your color artist. And of course, what we have right now is we have a Marauders team that is still very much grieving over the loss of Kitty Pryde. She was killed back in, I believe it was Marauders 6 by, of all people, Sebastian Shaw. Now we think that Bishop has a lead because he managed to find a portion of the plant that was wrapped around Kate's ankle and knows that it was probably of Krakoan descent, or we'll find that out at some point. And of course this is all eventually going to link back to Sebastian Shaw, which bless his heart when it finally gets back to him, because he is going to be in a world of hurt. With all that said, we'll use that as our jumping on point for Marauders number 10. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and of course, I want to hear your comments at the end of this, guys. Alright, so Marauders 10 starts, of all places, at Krakoa, and guess what they have? A distillery. But I mean, of course they have a distillery, and they're using tempo, of all people, to help age the whiskey in the barrels, so who knows? Maybe it's pretty good. After all, the taster, Sebastian Shaw, does give it his seal of approval, actually calling it the true miracle of Krakoa, despite the fact that they, brought his son back. But, true miracle is the whiskey. And it's at that point that Storm walks up, and she is on a mission. She comes straight for Forge and says, "Forge, I would speak with you alone." And Forge, of course, is all too ready to comply. He steps off to the side with her, and he's like, "Look, what's wrong?" And she begins to explain that a group of Russians are actually making power-dampening weapons. And that what we've seen from the Russians so far with these depowering suits is just the beginning, that they're moving forward with weapons similar to Forge's design that actually depowered Storm way back in the day. A la X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 185, where Forge tried to use the weapon on Rogue, who was just ripping through everyone at the time, and accidentally hit Storm, of course leaving her without her mutant abilities. Well, when Storm tells him that, look, the Russians are building this based off your technology, Forge tells him, look, that's impossible. I deleted all of the technical files about the project as soon as I quit the US government. And Storm just asks, hey, are you sure you destroyed everything? Are you sure you got everything? He's like, yeah, of course I did. And then he has a pause and says, well, actually, Daniels, he's one of the engineers under me at the Department of Defense. He had a photographic memory. And Storm just balls up her fist and says the cuss. From there we jump to the Quiet Council, where everyone is sitting around waiting, and Emma Frost is nowhere to be seen. And Mr. Sinister's the one who finally says, look, this is getting a bit ridiculous. And that's when Sophie shows up, and Mr. Sinister asks her, like, where is she? And she replies, look, the White Queen sends her regards, but she won't be joining you today. She then lets everyone know that Bishop had succeeded in hacking Madripoor's governmental network, and in doing so found cooperation between Verendi, the Madripoor government, Russia, and Brazil, and all of these nations are conspiring together to build this Forge's old weapon, basically, the one that depowers mutants. And they have a freighter out in some ocean somewhere that the Marauders are about to attack. Now, Sebastian Shaw, looking like he's getting a bit of a stress headache here because he's got his finger in all these pots, says, look, isn't Krakoa a little bit young to go to war with half of the globe? He then tells her, look, get this over to X-Force, let them handle it. Now, where is Emma? And Sophie looks over at her and says, look, were we not clear? The Marauders have sailed to war. I'm here simply to tell you to give them a wide berth. And what was just revealed here is a really big deal, right? You have several countries and some organizations that are developing weapons specifically designed to depower mutants. That is a direct threat to everything that the mutant nation of Krakoa is doing. And Nightcrawler stands up right away. He's like, look, we have to discuss this. And Professor X kind of tries to hold everybody at bay, but Magneto just slides off his helmet. As soon as his helmet off, he calls out to Sophie, basically, and so where she can hear, and she picks it up, and he relays the message to tell the White Queen to leave no one to tell the tale. And she responds, "Of course, sir." From there, we jump to this Russian vessel where they're off the coast of who knows where, and they look out, and suddenly they see an iceberg. And when this guy looks through the binoculars, there he is staring at two Omega-level mutants, Iceman and Storm, sitting there waiting for him, about to launch this attack. Well, within moments of them spotting the iceberg and spotting the mutants, the ship is lifted out of the water by Iceman, and they try to slam it in reverse, and it's impossible because the propellers are no longer even in the water. They've lifted them all the way out. As soon as the vessel is immobilized, the strike team's up next. Bobby Drake calls out to Emma and says, "Look, you're up." And at that point, all these communications are jammed. These guys are just sitting ducks at this point. And what better way to kick off phase 2 of this operation than inserting your strike team via UFO? That's right, the Mercury is a UFO. And, well, they just use it. They teleport down to the surface, talking Bishop, Forge, and the rest of the strike team, and they quickly go and find this guy, Daniels. He comes busting out of the cell like, "Look, Forge, look, man, they made me do it." And he's like, "Look, man, we know, we figured." And he has, of course, one of these collars on his neck, and Forge starts working on getting that thing off of him. Deeper in the ship, Emma, Pyro, and Callisto have made it all the way and managed to corner the captain. The captain is actually about to blow the ship when Callisto pulls a knife, puts it right at his neck, and says, "Look, I know you're prepared to die, but are you prepared to die slowly, one little piece at a time?" And with the bridge secured, that's when Emma noticed that this guy has one of those mutant dampening pistols. And she manages to pocket that, which, call me crazy, I think is going to come up again later. After that, they put everybody in the camp through a mandatory re-education camp, and then scoop them up in the UFO and drop them back off in Russia. After that, they open fire on the ship, sink it, and we get to go to the deck of the Mercury. And on that, we find out that Christian is the one who's flying it, and he is actually the neural interface that he's using is his piano, which is pretty cool. And when Bishop asks him about it, like, where did they get this? He kind of is like, well, White Queen's going to play that one pretty close to the chest at this point. So let's save that one for another day. From there, we go back to Forge and his buddy from back at the DOD, and they're hanging out on Krakoa and discussing just how far Krakoa has come in such a short period of time. And there's that moment of realization this guy has when he realizes that he is so dangerous to Krakoa that he can't be allowed to leave, at least not in his current state. And that's when Emma Frost comes up behind him and basically rewrites his story. The next time we see him, he is actually joining the Morlocks at this whatever resort and spa that they've set up for the Morlocks. It isn't quite Krakoa, but it's still pretty nice. And he introduces himself, and he's going to just hang out with the Morlocks, I reckon, and play golf. And from there, we jump to the Five, and the Five are standing around looking just defeated and exhausted over an egg, and Professor X is actually just dismissing them for the day, saying, "Look, don't lose heart. That's enough for the day. Tomorrow, we're going to continue the good work." And Goldballs looks up at him and says, "Look, with all due respect, sir, I don't think that we're doing anything wrong. I just don't think Kitty can be resurrected." And Professor X looks up and says, "You know what? I agree. For now. Please, go sleep. I'll inform the White Queen of my decision." And with that, the next issue is Funeral for a Mutant. So overall, if you like Gerry Duggan, if you've been into Marauders since day one, you probably enjoyed this book. And if you haven't liked Marauders, then you probably fell on the other side of that. That's just kind of the way Marauders has been. It's been wildly inconsistent. It's been up and down, some really good issues and some really bad issues. I'd say this hit somewhere in the middle. One thing I did want to say was Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. You have one of the most important jobs in the world in being a father, because the things you do, the way you raise your children, can have a generational impact beyond not just your children, but their children, and the life that they choose to live, what they see as acceptable and unacceptable. And I pray that we all in our lives take that responsibility seriously, that we can live as examples, that when our children are grown and those actions are mirrored back to us, that we can be proud of them and everything that they do, and knowing that we've set them on the right path. I truly pray for each and every father out there and your families, and I hope you guys have a blessed week coming up. As far as the channel goes, I'm going to try to get back into some kind of schedule with work and everything. It's been very difficult. As soon as I thought this this outbreak stuff was dropping and setting in, then this other stuff with the protests and everything spiked. So it's created a lot of work, and now because of the protest spike, the second wave of outbreak spike, it's been insane. But just y'all just thank you for sticking around with me. Thank you for being patient, and thank you for understanding. I really appreciate the comments from individuals who have reached out and said, hey man, what happened to you? And it's honestly just being completely overwhelmed with work and trying to spend as much time with my family as I can when I do get time off. So guys, thank you for understanding that, and y'all have a great week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I'll see y'all around. That's all I got. Real Comic Stacks out.